Hi, welcome back to my channel. So, the other day I did watch The Batman, the one directed by Matt Reeves, with Robert Pattinson as the Batman. It's important that you know. It's important that you include the. This isn't just any old Batman; it's the Batman. Anyway, so my thoughts on it. Um, I don't know. There will probably be spoilers here, but probably not too many. Nothing too serious. So, on the whole, I kind of found it okay. Um, Not the worst Batman movie I've ever seen. That still goes to Batman Begins. Yep, I said it. Batman Begins, worst Batman movie. Worse than Batman and Robin because at least Batman and Robin was fun. At least that one, at least that one you could laugh at. Anyway, I think one of my main issues with the Batman is the same problem I have with the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Basically, it's just so damn miserable. Like, it's just, there's no joy in the movie. And I just find that tedious and this will be a controversial opinion, but it doesn't really feel authentic to Batman as a character. Because so many, all these live action adaptations want to treat Batman as this grim loner, you know, waging this one man war on crime, and he has to be alone, aside from Alfred, of course. And even then, there has to be tension with Alfred. And it's like, Batman's got a whole family. He's had multiple Robins, most of whom have grown up into their and assumed their own identities. There's been a few Batgirls. Uh, there's Batwoman. There's Huntress, and there's other allies he's got. He's got an entire Bat family. So like this whole lone warrior thing, it's kind of not. You know, he's had Robin as a sidekick almost pretty much from his debut, just about like very 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 early on in his existence. They added Robin as a sidekick. He spent more time like he's his entire existence. He's had people he's worked with. He's had a family that's just grown and grown. And I feel like it's a shame that they never actually get to be included in these movies. And I honestly think it's time. If the Batman gets a sequel, then I think the best thing they could do would be to introduce Robin and even Batgirl. Like introduce them both in the same. Yeah, you could introduce them both in the same film for sure. Um, and beyond that, fairly interesting take on the Riddler. Much darker than usual. Um, Didn't have the playfulness of traditional Riddlers, uh, but it made for a somewhat interesting take on the character. Catwoman, I didn't really buy the romance between Batman and Catwoman. It felt shoehorned in a little bit. Like it was there because they're supposed to be lovers, but it did feel artificial. It didn't really they didn't really have great chemistry, and really was it really did feel way too quick. Like a flirtation, sure, but they got way too serious about each other way too fast. Um, no, Pattinson himself, I thought he did a pretty good job as Batman. He didn't get to do anything as Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne was pretty much a non entity here, which again feels like kind of a shame. Um, a common a common analysis of Batman is that Batman is his true self, and Bruce Wayne is the mask that he wears. I kind of disagree. I think they're both. I think both sides of him are authentic. I'll admit I haven't read Batman. I haven't read Batman comics in forever. I never read that many to begin with, but and it's been forever since I've read any Batman comics. Um, the '90s Batman animated series is sort of my main familiarity with Batman. Kevin Conroy will always be my Batman. uh, but I feel like Bruce Wayne is important to Batman. I feel like he does need that balance. He does need to present both sides of himself. Batman is where he goes. Batman is the identity he uses to uh, Batman is the identity he uses to protect people. Bruce Wayne is the identity he uses to fight crime. As Bruce Wayne, you know, he supports charities. He hires ex felons. He hires the same people that he busts as Batman. He invests in Gotham. He does what he as Bruce Wayne. He does what he can to actually reduce the causes of crime. Unsuccessfully, because it's a comic book. He's not allowed to actually make it. He's not allowed to actually make a long term difference. But that's sort of the goal. That's sort of, I feel like that is where the duality comes in. Batman protects people, Bruce Wayne fights crime. And this movie had none of Bruce Wayne. Um, I did appreciate that it did at least try to include some detective stuff. Um, Less than I would have liked. But I mean, again, the Christopher Nolan Batman movies just completely ignored any sort of detective shit. Batman is the world's greatest detective. That's at the core of his character. That is central to what Batman is. Uh, any adaptation that doesn't have him doing detective work is, quite frankly, not Batman. It's a bad Batman. And this movie did at least a little bit of it. Less than I would have liked, but it did do some. Um, Again, any future Batman movies, I think I would like to see put more focus on investigative work than on beating people up. Less action, more mystery. I think Batman works best as a mystery comic to a certain mystery story to a certain extent. Um, yeah, that I mean, everyone else in the movie did good jobs. Um, yeah, Jeffrey Wright was good as James Gordon. John Turturro, always entertaining, and he was appropriately sleazy and unsettling. Uh, Andy Serkis is fair as Alfred. He was good. Colin Farrell was great as Penguin. I like that. Like he was just so out of nowhere kind of deal. Like he's not. Colin Farrell always plays, you know, a good looking guy. Um, because I mean, Colin Farrell is an attractive man, so he always plays hot guy characters. So to see him, he was unrecognizable. He did such a good job. Like he was just completely unrecognizable. And credit to the makeup team for that. Uh, but also credit to him because the performance he put in helped to make him less recognizable as well. So he was really good, and I do want to see more of that. Um, let's see what else. Yeah, I mean it is a very long movie, and it feels long. It does kind of drag at points. Um, there's a lot of parts that, yeah, like when Batman is briefly arrested, like that part felt like it could have been cut. Um, it didn't feel like it added anything, and in fact, it sort of made some of his later interactions with the police feel weirder because there doesn't didn't seem to be any tension there. Yeah, he escaped police custody, and then he shows up at a crime scene later, and nobody. I don't know. I didn't like that. That's that whole section with him being taken into police custody could have been completely cut out without losing anything from the movie, without losing any value. Um, a few other moments here and there that just felt extraneous. It felt a bit dragged out and unnecessary. So there were definitely things that could have been done to reduce the runtime to make it. 'Cause 3 hours is a long movie. That is a long movie. Um, but it's worse when there are parts that feel long, and the Batman did feel like a long movie. So definitely needed edited down a little bit more. Um, could have been like it needed to be a little bit tighter a film. Um, it's got the it's got a fairly typical issue of there being times where dialogue is a little too quiet, followed by uh, action that's fairly loud. There were a few bits where that was a problem. That's sort of a common problem for action movies in general. Batman movies, even more in particular. Batman movies have a specific issue with it, in large part because Batman himself tends to tends to speak in a quieter voice, growling and trying to hide his voice a little bit. And that does sometimes make it a little bit hard to follow the dialogue. So that's another thing that definitely could have been improved. Just some slight changes in the sound mixing. I guess it would have been bump up dialogue volume so that you don't need to turn so you don't need to have the volume on high for dialogue and then have to turn it back down again for action. That's always that's always annoying. Having to continually adjust the volume based on what kind of scene you're watching. Um, I'm not really sure what else I can add to it, um, or add to this review. I do feel like the a lot of the characters did end up feeling underdeveloped for sure. That was definitely a problem. There was a lot of the characters didn't really feel fleshed out as they should have been. Not down to the performances. Like I said, the actors did good work trying to add depth to the characters. It's just the writing for them just wasn't really there. Um, so yeah, not a bad movie, but I wouldn't really call it a great movie either. It's just fairly standard Batman live action film. Um, I said, I do. If there's a sequel, I do hope that it has an even greater focus on Batman as a detective, and I hope that it adds in that it starts bringing in the Bat family. It's definitely time for the Bat family to start getting included in the movies. Batman Forever and Batman and Robin sort of tried to, but those suffered from those movies suffered from the studio wanting family friendly fare. A lot of people blame Joel Schumacher for the cheesiness of those movies. Um, but I mean, he was brought in for a reason, and like he brought, I mean, he brought the camp element that the classic Batman TV series had. Uh, but I mean, he was somewhat, even he was doing what the studio wanted him to do. The producers wanted a camp and family friendly Batman franchise, and the movies and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin in particular uh, suffered from that, from the uh, studio's desires. So I do think it's definitely time that we saw the Bat Family again on screen, though, in a movie. They tend to get they I mean they always get used in other adaptations. Um, the cartoons, even the video games started to bring them in. I think what was the Arkham Knights? I think was pretty much all about the Bat Family. Uh, so yeah, let's see them because that really that does more to get to the core of Batman as a character than him as a grim lone warrior. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Batman. Uh, so let me know what you thought of it if you watched it. Let me know what you thought of the movie. Let me know what you want to see in uh, Batman movie. For now, thanks for watching and have a great day.